Have you ever struggled with photos taken under mixed lighting? Well, I'm here to tell you, you're not alone. Today, I'm going to take you through my process of how to achieve perfect color balance inside of Lightroom. What's up? My name is Jay LeBlanc, wedding photographer and photo video educator. Now, you may have experienced mixed lighting in many different situations. Whether you're a real estate photographer and you're dealing with outside light coming into a room where you have to have the room lights on, maybe you're a portrait photographer and you're doing some street photography during that blue hour or golden hour, and you have to deal with the lights that are available, whether it's the street lights, car lights, or some other light. Or maybe you're a wedding photographer and you know you have to capture those special moments, but you can't say, wait, let's fix the lighting to have that moment between grandma and her granddaughter happen again. Sometimes we just gotta capture what's happening in front of us and kind of deal with it later. Well, today I'm gonna help you solve this mixed lighting situation inside of Lightroom so your pictures don't suck and we can make them usable. Make sure you stick around till the end when I tell you my secret of what I do when all else fails. Now, sometimes you don't have control over the lighting, but when you do, I always suggest control what you can control. If you're trying to shoot somebody by window light and you have lights in the room on that are a different color temperature, turn off those room lights, especially if they're not adding anything to your photo. Now, I know it's not always controllable, which is why I'm making this video to help out in those situations when we just have to shoot what we're given. Now, I have to admit, finding pictures for this tutorial was a little bit difficult. I've been shooting weddings for a very long time, and I've been dealing with this problem for a very long time. And I've learned how to avoid all this time editing by making a few adjustments while I'm shooting. Whether that be turn off the room lights, get my subject a little bit closer to the window light if that's my light source, or just have the eye to recognize when you are in a challenging lighting situation. Now, whenever possible, I will control these lighting situations because I know what the post-processing entails, and I'd much rather just flick a light switch than spend 5 minutes on each picture shot in that less than ideal lighting situation. So like everybody always says, get it right in camera, or as close as you can. Or in a wedding situation, just turn the light off. Now I'm going to go through two different methods that I use to achieve almost the same look, where we're going to fix the mixed lighting to get us a better result. And let's jump into Lightroom and I'll show you the first method. All right, we're inside of Lightroom and let's check out the first method. And before we start, I got to tell you, this is Tim. Tim is my videographer. We have been working together for a very long time and I love him. Every time we work a wedding together, I take ridiculous pictures of him. He takes funny videos of me. So if he had his own YouTube channel, I'm sure he'd be showing you the same crazy things of me. But I just want to show you an example using Tim instead of a pretty bride, like I always do. So back to Lightroom with Tim. All right, Tim, thanks for volunteering today. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to apply my import preset. Now, if you want to check out more about this import preset, I'll link a video up above where I show you exactly how I make this preset. And as you can see in this room, we're dealing with a lot going on. We have the blue light coming in from the window. You can see it on Tim's shirt and on his pants. The curtains were green, so the light was reflecting off of the curtains, creating a little bit of a green cast, and you could kind of see it in the skin tones and on the side of the dresser here. And then the room lights were also on, and back here you can see on the wall that the wall is a little bit yellow. Now, the color of the walls did have a little bit of a yellow tint to them, but they definitely weren't this yellow. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm just going to go ahead and hit auto white balance. It looks okay. And what I'm really focused on here is skin tones. So I'm going to zoom in right to Tim's face and we're going to get a little bit better idea of just what the color in the room is doing to his skin tones. Tim, you look fabulous, by the way. Whenever Tim and I work together, we always like to show brides what we want. And this is the golden opportunity to get ridiculous pictures and videos of each other. But as you can see, Tim's skin tones underneath auto white balance look decent, but not great. I think they're a little too warm. So I'm just going to bring the temperature down just a tad on the temperature slider. And I think there's still a little bit of green there from the curtains in the room. So I'm going to bring up my magenta just a little bit. And now I think the skin tones on Tim look pretty good. So I'm going to zoom back out and we're going to deal with everything else going on in the room. What I'm going to do for my first method is I like to use just our color mixer here, specifically the saturation. And what I'm really looking at is what colors are causing a problem. So the first being, I would say yellow. If we're looking back here on the walls, we have some yellow tint on the walls and it's from the lights that are on in the room. So what I'm going to do is just drag down my yellow saturation until it kind of gets to a point that looks pretty good. Now you might be saying, room lights are not typically yellow, they're more of an orange hue. And yes, you're correct. But I like to adjust the yellow because if I adjust the orange too much, it's really going to mess up the skin tones. The yellow tends to solve that problem of the slight color cast without touching the skin tones too much. So I bring down the yellow a little bit. Next thing I'm going to take a look at is the blue. So we have some cool light coming from outside, and you can really see it here on Tim's pants. Now obviously his shirt and his pants were made by two different manufacturers because his shirt has a little bit warmer of a tint and his pants have a little bit cooler of a tint. That's why every fabric is different, and it's just a pain in the butt sometimes when people are wearing clothes from different companies. But luckily, it wasn't Tim's wedding, so we don't have to worry about this too much. This is just an example. I'm going to take my blue slider now. We're going to start if I drag it all the way down, you can really see it's really affecting Tim's clothes, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my blue slider, and just for an example, I'm going to drag it all the way down, completely desaturate the blues, which honestly doesn't look too bad, but I am thinking that we shouldn't go that far. Now, if we go the other way and really saturate the blues, we can really see what's being affected by the blue light coming in the window. So I'm going to just take my blue slider, I'm going to drag it down to probably maybe like -50 for this image. And that does a pretty good job of taking that blue cast out of Tim's clothing. And then the last problem we have is a little bit of a green tint. You can see it especially here on the dresser where the light is reflecting off of these curtains and causing a little bit of a green tint. Now there is another window directly to my left that also had those green curtains, and the light was really reflecting off of there and bouncing all around this very small room that she was getting ready in. So I'm going to just take our greens down a little bit. So that's pretty much it. All I typically do is adjust the yellow and the blue saturation. In this situation, I did have to adjust the green as well, but that was just because the curtains were green, creating a little bit of a cast. But usually it's just the yellow and the blue. Now, sometimes I will also adjust the luminance if I think I want to just brighten up or darken down a different part of the scene. So for example, for the most part in this scene, that yellow cast is on the wall behind him. So if I take the luminance of the yellow and drag it down, it just darkens down the wall behind him. Now it starts making some muddy grossness back here, so I don't love that too much. But if I just want to go slightly lower, it helps just make Tim stand out a little bit more and make the background a little less dominant, especially in such a tight, small room where there's a lot of stuff going on in the background and it's not ideal for pictures, but it's where the pictures had to happen because it was important to the bride. All right, so now that Tim is looking great, what I'm going to do is just go to the picture of the bride in the exact same spot, trying to do what Tim did. I think Tim did a little bit better of a job. Just saying, but he also has a lot more experience being a model. All I'm going to do is I'm going to just hit previous. So it's going to take all the settings from the previous picture and apply it to this. And there you go. I'll show you the before and after. Before, you can really see a lot of blue in the bottom of her dress. You can see the yellows in the wall. I know this picture is a little bit underexposed, but you can still see those yellows in the walls. You can see the green on the dresser. And if I show you the after, you can see the adjustments we have made have taken care of most of that. I will say I want to adjust the saturation of the yellows a little bit more just because if you look at the wall behind her, it's just a little too saturated for me. Now, if you know anything about color contrast, the reason why like the teal and orange look so good because oranges usually are skin tones and the warmer skin tones tend to come forward a little bit more in the picture. And then the blue are cooler tones and they tend to fall backwards, which is why if you look at this exact scene that I'm sitting in right now, my skin tones are more orange and the background's blue. You see this with a lot of YouTubers because it just naturally creates this color contrast, causing the person to kind of pop out of the background, which is why so many people do it. So I think the picture looks pretty good as it is dealing with that mixed color. Now, as far as some of the contrast and brightness, I would go back and make some more adjustments, but for the purpose of this tutorial, I think it's looking pretty decent. Now I'm going to show you on one more picture here. I got a picture of a groom here. We got to show the groom some love sometimes, right? It's not always about the bride. Yes, it is. Speaking of grooms, doesn't this guy look like Blake Shelton, the country singer? If you know who I'm talking about, I'll put a picture on the screen. This guy definitely looks like Blake Shelton. I told him that the second I met him. It's a compliment. Dude's famous and good looking guy. So I'm going to go ahead and hit my import preset. I'm going to adjust my exposure just to correct it a little bit. And just like before, I'm gonna hit auto white balance because it's easy and it's a good starting point. Is it always perfect? No, but it gets me in the ballpark usually. I think it made it a little too warm for my taste, so I'm just going to bring that down a little bit. And as you can see, once again, I have a window to the left of the picture, and then to the right of the picture, you can see behind them there is one wall light, but this is in a hotel, and there are lights going all the way down the hallway. That was creating a little bit of a mixed color situation. So all I'm going to do is come down here again to my yellow saturation. We're going to bring this down a little bit. And then for my blues, we're going to desaturate them a little as well. And I think that looks pretty good. Maybe just bring down my exposure a little bit more. And I'm liking what we're seeing. And there you have it. That's the first method. Pretty simple and straightforward. All I'm really doing is adjusting the saturation of the yellows and the blues. And we're getting 98% of the way there most of the time. Sometimes we will have to make some other adjustments. And yes, there are many other ways of doing this. You could use curves, you could use the point color. There's a lot of other options. This is what I just find to be the fastest way to deal with these mixed lighting situations. Do me a huge favor. If any of this is helping you so far, I would love it if you can just like this video. That's all I'm asking for this time. Tap the little like button, thumbs up, and I'll give you a high five through the camera. Boom. Thanks. Let's get back to it. All right, so here we have another mixed lighting situation. To the left, there is a window. This black fuzziness that you see here is the curtain that I was using to kind of hide the window, and it is creating nice, natural, soft light on the bride's face. But unfortunately, we have a bunch of lights in the background. This picture was actually taken right in the reception room. And when I took this picture, there was a ton of people in the room trying to set it up for the wedding. There was all of the wait staff setting the tables, putting out food, drinks, plates, utensils, all that. The DJ was getting ready, the photo booth was setting up. So I'm obviously not going to be able to just turn the lights off because the photographer wants to take a couple pictures. So I have to deal with this mixed lighting situation. And here's where I'm going to use the second method that I use for dealing with mixed light. Just like before, first thing I'm going to do is we're going to apply my import preset, which really accentuates that orange light that's going on in the background here. But the light on her face looks pretty good, and I like it right about where it is. Let's just see what an auto white balance would do. Does it make it any better? Not really. It makes it a little green. I actually don't love that, so I'm just going to undo that. So where we're sitting is pretty good. Now, to deal with the light situation going on in the background, what I want to do here is I'm going to click on my mask. I'm going to click backgrounds. And let's see how it does. It does a pretty good job masking it out. And then with this background mask, I'm going to come down to the section called point color, take my little eyedropper, and I'm going to go right to this wall that has a ton of orange going on it. And I'm going to desaturate what's going on that wall. And I'm also going to lower the luminance a little bit just to darken it down just a tad to help her pop off the picture. Now, the reason why I'm using this method on this image, because the color contrast in the room is very much so orange. And if I went and used my first method on this image, if I desaturated that orange, it would just make her skin tones look terrible. I'll show you real quick. I'm just going to turn off that mask. I'm going to slide down here to just our color mixer. And if I took down the oranges, look what's happening to her skin. Desaturating her skin. It would make her almost look dead to get the same result that we have with the mask. So I'm going to undo that and then turn our mask back on and see how that mask just cuts down the background. Now you might say, hey, there's a little bit of color cast going on her arm as well. But I think that's a little bit more red when we have that light mixed in with her skin tones. So here I'm just going to use a color mixer and take that down a little bit. And I think this picture looks much better than with that really bright orange wall behind her. And I'm going to show you on one other image where I'm using the same method. So here I was shooting an event for PSE&G, and this was one of the speakers. And I want to show you another picture real quick before we get into editing this. This is what that room looked like. I had my camera white balance set at daylight, so 5500 Kelvin. And this is how amber, red, orange that room was. This is what everybody looked like in that room. So it was a very challenging lighting situation. Now, when people were speaking, I did have a flash on them, which helped neutralize some of that red that was going on in the room. But we still have some adjustments to make here. So again, the first thing I'm going to do is apply that import preset, going to come over my white balance, auto, and see what that does. It does a decent job, but I think it's making him way too blue because of my flash that was on him that's daylight balance. So I'm going to warm it up a little bit, but then we start bringing back in the red on that wall. So what I'm going to do here is we're going to go to our mask, we're going to click on our background, we're going to let Lightroom's AI do its thing, and we're going down to our point color again using our eyedropper, and we're going to click on the wall. This time we're getting a little bit more of a red color here, and I'm going to take our saturation and we're going to drop that down just a little bit. Now, I don't want to completely kill it because, yeah, there was a red hue going on in the room, and there's a reason why they chose that, but I don't want it to overpower the main subject here. And then we have this little light on the wall behind him that was probably closer to a 3200 Kelvin light. And I'm okay with this light in this situation because if you look at him on his hair, on his shoulder, it's almost looking like that this light is creating this rim light on him, when in reality it was a spotlight that was over his shoulder. But this just makes sense visually to make it look like this light is creating this highlight on his side. So I'm going to leave that there. My main focus is this crazy red cast that we have going on the wall. And I think we did a pretty good job of knocking that down. The AI mask did pick up the podium. So what I'm going to do here real quick is we are going to subtract. We're going to try doing an object. Let's see how that works. Loosely brush over that. See if it detects it. There we go. Perfect. So we got rid of the podium there because the podium in those wood tones does have a lot of red, and I don't want to completely eliminate that. But what we're really doing is just knocking down that red cast in the background. So there it is. That's my method for dealing with mixed lighting situation. Now, as I promised earlier, I told you there's one secret that if you're still struggling with mixed lighting after all of these tips and trying both of these methods, there's still something that you can do to fix the problem. Now, some people may call this idea a cheap out, and other people might call it the perfect solution to this problem. No matter what your opinion is on this, it flat out works. And let me show you. All we're going to do is jump back into Lightroom, and over here in our adjustments, we're going to go to the basic panel and click this little button that says BNW. There it is. If you still can't get it, just make your picture black and white. That's what everybody does. And until next time, peace.